Ching, wife of Larry Ching, drove her new 7 Series BMW sedan through the congested streets of the Namong neighborhood in western Beijing. She was headed to meet her friends for lunch. Li was running late and cursed the slow-moving traffic that was in her path. She couldn't wait to show her friends her new BMW. Her best friend, Guang Qi, had recently received a new E-Class Mercedes as a gift from her husband. Li was jealous of her friend Guang and had worked for 2 months persuading her husband Larry to get her a luxury car too. "I need a higher-class car, my husband. When I meet my friends for lunch in town, I feel embarrassed driving up in our Toyota. You have just as prestigious a job as their husbands now, and you make more money. When can I get a Mercedes like Guang?" Finally, Larry broke down and bought her a BMW. She had wanted a Mercedes, but Larry had a friend who owned a BMW dealer, and he gave him a good discount. When Li first saw the car parked in the driveway, she was disappointed. "Wife, this is a BMW. It is better than a Mercedes. Mercedes merged with the American automaker Chrysler, and they are no longer what they used to be. A few months from now, your friends will realize that and envy you." Li settled down after that. Li's marriage to her husband had been arranged. She was 19 when her parents sat her down and said, "Li, it is time for you to marry. Your husband will be the second son of Wang Ching, the prominent exporter. His son Larry is finishing business school and will work with his father when he graduates." When Li heard that her marriage had been arranged, she felt disappointed. She knew many of her lady friends also had arranged marriages, but she hoped that she would be like the few she knew who broke tradition and married somebody they met and fell in love with on their own. But over the next weeks, she met Larry a few times and realized how rich his parents were, and eventually felt better, imagining the life of comfort and prestige she would have. Li's first year of marriage was pleasant. They had money to eat at the best restaurants and travel on nice vacations. They were able to buy a nice townhouse in one of the best suburbs of Beijing. Larry was smart, accomplished at his job, and took care of most of household business besides cooking. Soon, Li and Larry decided it was time to have children. By this time, Li was becoming bored as a stay-at-home wife with not much to do. Li thought that maybe having 1 or 2 kids would relieve the boredom she felt, and they tried for several months without success. Eventually, they accepted the fact that children were not in their future. As time passed, Larry spent more time at work and, as expected, rose through the ranks at his company. After a few promotions, he began to travel more, and Li was left alone. Without children to raise, Li was bored and lonely and looked forward to the social activities she planned with her friends. Many afternoons she spent going to lunches, tours of museums, or the occasional afternoon opera. Her husband made a good salary, enough to afford a housekeeper who cleaned and made dinner most evenings. As Li sat in traffic on her way to meet her friends for lunch, she became more anxious about being late. The cars in front of her were not moving. If the traffic didn't let up soon, she would miss her lunch date. And worse, she wouldn't get the chance to show off her new car to her friends. Li saw something out of the corner of her eye and then heard a thump sound. A man riding a bicycle hit the mirror on Li's door. The mirror broke off, and the man fell over sideways, crashing into a fruit stand on the side of the street. The fruit stand was knocked over, and the man on the bicycle lay on the ground. "Clumsy oaf," thought Li. She rolled down her window and shouted to the man, "How could you be so clumsy? Weren't you looking where you were going?" Li thought about how she would be late if she stopped to exchange papers with the man. Maybe she could just pick up the mirror and be on her way. The man slowly started to get up, obviously shaken. "I'm sorry, Mrs. I was distracted. I did not mean to damage your automobile." The man picked up his bike. It was bent and twisted. He had blood coming from his forehead. He picked up the mirror and handed it to Lee through the window. "I will pay for any damage, Mrs. You will definitely pay for the damage. My husband will make sure of that." Now she'd really be late, Lee thought. "I just want to be on my way. I can get my husband to take the car in for a new mirror. But this blasted traffic doesn't seem to be letting up. Maybe I can go up on the curb and around these cars." Lee stepped on the gas pedal, and with unexpected suddenness, the car rocketed forward, up onto the sidewalk. Just then, the man, looking down at his bike, stepped right in front of Lee's car. When the car hit him, he was catapulted up, and Lee saw him disappear over the roof of the car. She heard a loud thud on the trunk, and when she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw the man roll off the back. Instead of stopping, Lee continued to drive down the sidewalk. People screamed and jumped out of her way. Lee saw a car stopped on the road with its hood up at the front of the line that was holding up the traffic. Lee pulled back onto the street, took a right onto the main thoroughfare, and accelerated into the moving traffic. Lee hoped nobody had seen her license plate. Even if they did, she could always say that the man with the bike drove in front of her. Or that she didn't know that she had hit him. He was obviously a peasant, and it would be her word against his. And her husband could probably pay a fine to avoid any problems. Lee arrived at the fashionable restaurant where she was to meet her friends. She was late, and her friends looked up when she walked over to their table in the dining room. "What's wrong, Lee?" said her friend Guang. "Did you have a problem with traffic?" "Yes, I thought I was taking a shortcut and got held up. Then a clumsy peasant ran into my mirror and broke it off. On my new car." "Did Larry get you the Mercedes?" asked Guang. "He got me a BMW, a very nice model. Larry says that BMW is now more popular in America than Mercedes." Lee could see the frown on Guang's face when she said this, but Guang said no more about it. Lee spent the rest of the time with her friends, talking about their gardens, the trips they were planning to Hong Kong, and their husbands' jobs. When Lee got home that evening, she told the housekeeper to make chicken soy pan, her husband's favorite meal, and then went to sit in a hot bath. During dinner, she told her husband about the incident. "My husband, a clumsy peasant, drove his bicycle into my new car today and broke off the mirror. I felt bad for him, so I let him go without demanding he pay for the damage." "Why not? If it was his fault and he damaged our car, he should cover the cost of it." "My husband, he looked poor, and I thought I would be kind and not ask him to pay. Besides, won't insurance pay for it?" "I suppose they will. Tomorrow I will arrange to have it fixed, and I will call the insurance company." That night, Lee dreamed she was in her new BMW. She was driving up a hill, but the car was going slower and slower. No matter how hard she pressed down on the gas pedal, the car kept slowing down. Finally, it stopped, and she sat in the middle of the road. She had a panicky feeling that she had to get over the top of the hill, but the car would not move. She was afraid of getting out of the car. It was hard to see through the windows. She tried turning on the lights, but they did not work. She heard some voices, but did not know where they were coming from. Then she woke up. She was in her bed. The voices were coming from out near the kitchen. One voice was her husband's, but the others she did not recognize. She got up, put on her robe, and went out into the kitchen. Her husband was talking to two men. They were dressed in suits, but did not have the polished and expensive appearance of the men who worked with her husband. "Lee, these men are detectives. They are here about the incident yesterday. They say people are saying you hit a man on a bicycle. I told them the man drove into your car and you were good enough to let him go, without asking him to pay for the damage. I told them there must be some mistake. Mrs. Ching, my name is Detective Ho. This is my assistant, Detective Chin. What actually happened yesterday? It's what my husband told you. A man drove his bicycle into my car. He broke off the mirror. He was very rude, and he kept driving. I should have gone after him, but I was nice enough to let him go. What kind of lies is he telling? Is this what I get for being nice to a peasant? Detective Ho looked at Mrs. Ching skeptically and continued, There are several witnesses that say you intentionally drove your car into him. Mrs. Ching, I have to inform you the man died from his injuries yesterday. He made it to the hospital but lost so much blood he didn't make it. His name was Wen Lo. We need to know what happened. I told you what happened, Lee said with some anger. Besides, if we have to pay a fine, can't we just do that? My husband will take care of it. Or perhaps a gift to the man's family would make them happy. I'm sorry, Mrs. Ching. You will have to come down to the police station to answer more questions about what happened. We would like you to come down now. I'm supposed to meet my friends for a garden tour today. It has been planned for a long time. Mrs. Ching, this is very serious. You will have to cancel your plans and come down to the station this morning. Your husband can come with you. And if you want to call a lawyer, you can do that too. Lawyer? Said Mr. Ching. Why would we need a lawyer? It's like my wife told you. This peasant hit her car. I feel badly for him and his family, but it was his fault. Detective Ho looked at Mr. Ching and went on. Some people feel more comfortable if they have their lawyer with them. Please, get ready, Mrs. Ching. In the meantime, Mr. Ching can show my assistant Chin the damage to your car. Li Ching went into her bedroom to get ready, while Mr. Ching took Detective Chin to the underground garage to show him the BMW. While Li Ching got dressed, she thought about how she would miss the garden tour. Then she thought about the man she hit yesterday. She could picture his face, sad and proud, while he picked up his bent bicycle. Then his look of shock as the car headed at him. It was his fault, she thought. He walked right in front of my car. In the garage, Detective Chin walked around the car a few times, then knelt down at the front. Mr. Ching could hear him humming softly to himself. He pulled out a small pocket knife and scraped something from the front of the car into a plastic bag he pulled from his coat pocket. Yes, there is damage here on the front. Was the car damaged in any way before this incident, Mr. Ching? No, absolutely not. I just got the car for my wife last week. It was in perfect condition. Immediately, Mr. Ching wondered if he should have said what he did. Do you think my wife is not telling you what really happened? She is nothing but honest. Oh, it is not my job to draw conclusions, said Chin. I simply collect evidence and assemble facts. There are others who decide what really happened. Mr. Ching heard him continue to hum while he walked around and studied the rear of the car. Mr. and Mrs. Ching met Detective Ho at the police station. They had to take Mr. Ching's Jaguar since Detective Ho wrapped orange tape around the BMW and told them that the car was evidence and could not be driven until further notice. Detective Ho led Mr. and Mrs. Ching into a room in the back of the police station. He offered them tea and then came in with another detective. Mrs. Ching, this is Detective Wong. Please start at the beginning and tell us everything that happened yesterday. Mrs. Ching told the two detectives how she was taking a shortcut and had hit traffic, and while she was stopped, a man on a bicycle hit her car, breaking off the mirror. He didn't seem hurt, and I didn't want to bother with paperwork or have any trouble, so I left. The whole time Mrs. Ching was explaining what happened, Detective Ho remained silent and nodded. When Mrs. Ching was finished, Detective Ho finally spoke. Mrs. Ching, several witnesses told us you drove onto the sidewalk and hit Mr. Lo. Mr. Ching looked up. Ho continued. They said you drove away. They said you must have been drunk or using narcotics. Mrs. Ching, we need to know the truth. Lee looked over at her husband, and before she could say anything, Mr. Ching spoke up in a loud voice. It's like she told you. The man drove into her car. Why would you believe some peasants? I am a businessman. My wife and I are very prominent. These witnesses must be lying. Detective Ho opened a folder in front of him and looked at some papers. Mrs. Ching, your car was damaged in the front, on the top, and in the rear. There is paint on your car that matches the paint on the man's bicycle. Mr. Ching told us this car was brand new and never damaged until yesterday. Can you explain how it was damaged on the front and top if the man ran into your mirror? How would I know? Said Mrs. Ching. Her voice began to shake. Maybe somebody damaged it while I was with my friends at lunch. I wouldn't have noticed. Detective Ho closed the folder in front of him and said, Mr. Ching, Mrs. Ching, what happened is most serious. A man was killed. There are many witnesses that are saying it was no accident. Do you have a lawyer? I will call my lawyer at once, said Mr. Ching. But this is unnecessary. It was an accident. The man hit our car. Any other story is a lie. Detective Ho led Mr. and Mrs. Ching out to the lobby of the police station. He told them that they would be needed for more questions and that they should not leave town until further notice. On the way home, Mr. Ching turned to his wife and said, I will call my lawyer Lin as soon as we get home. He will take care of this. There shouldn't be this much trouble. He will know who to talk to. When they got home, Mr. Ching called his lawyer, Mr. Hao Lin, and explained what happened. Lin listened to the whole story before speaking, then said, I will take care of this. I know this Detective Ho. This should not be a problem. At worst, you will have to pay a fine to both the police and to the family of the man who died. I will see what I can do. That night, Mrs. Ching had another dream. Again, she was driving the BMW up a hill, and it kept going slower until it stopped. Once again, she could not see clearly out the window. She tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. She then awoke with a start. It was still nighttime. Mr. Ching was sleeping soundly next to her. She got up and went out to the kitchen and made some tea. When she was done, she sat in the easy chair, looking out the picture window, facing the lights of downtown Beijing. She thought again of Wen Lo, about the look on his face, about the sound when she hit him, about him rolling off the back of the car. Along the wall, Mr. Ching's aquarium with his collection of exotic fish made a gurgling sound. It was soothing to watch the fish. Mrs. Ching fell asleep again, and when she awoke, it was morning. Mr. Ching was leaving for work. He stopped at the door and said, Hopefully Lin made the right calls and this whole situation will be behind us. If you have to go out today, call a cab. Detective Ho said not to touch the car until this is over. About 10 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Ching answered it. It was Detective Ho and Detective Chin. Mrs. Ching, I'm here to inform you that you are under arrest. You will have to come with us now. We will spare you the embarrassment of handcuffs, but we have to leave now. Please get your coat and whatever else you need. Mrs. Ching's eyes teared. Her voice shook. What? My husband said that everything was taken care of. I need to call him. I'm sorry, Mrs. Chin. You can call him from the police station. You must come with us now. At the police station, they walked Mrs. Chin down the block to another building where a female policewoman met them. Ho and Chin left, and the policewoman led Mrs. Chin down a hall and told her she would be staying there that night. A second policewoman took her jewelry and her purse. They searched her and then led her to a room with a small bed in the corner. Mrs. Ching sat down on the bed, and the policewoman told her when her husband arrived, he could visit her in the room. An hour later, the policewoman opened the door, and let Mr. Ching and the lawyer Lin inside. They waited for the policewoman to leave. Then Mr. Ching said, "There's been some trouble. Lin here spoken to the police, but they say that there's nothing they can do." Lin spoke up then and said, "Mrs. Ching, normally there would not be any trouble for something like this, but the police are saying that several people witnessed what happened. And, of course, his family is furious. They have rallied many of their friends and are spreading the word that an injustice is being committed. Normally, with the right payment of fines, I could settle this. Word of this incident is spreading across Beijing. It seems the authorities want to make an example of you. They want to show that there isn't corruption in the courts and the police. I'm afraid it doesn't look good for us." The whole time Lin was speaking, Mrs. Ching looked at him like she could not grasp what he was saying. "What does this mean? What will happen to me?" Lin looked at Mr. Ching for assistance, but Mr. Ching looked down at his feet. "I think the best thing to do is to admit your guilt. If we go to trial, there are too many witnesses that will be against you, and public opinion will also be against you. Even the judge will be expected to make an example of you. If you admit your guilt, you might get a lighter sentence, maybe no more than 10 years. Ching could not believe her ears. 10 years! We were supposed to pay a fine, she thought. She could not survive in jail, not even for a day, let alone for years. Mrs. Ching looked at her husband, who was still looking down at his feet. "Why didn't you offer them more money? Call the family and tell them they can have the car. You must be able to do something more." Mr. Ching still said nothing. "Mrs. Ching," Lin continued, "we tried. Not too long ago this would be over and you would be home by now, but the internet has allowed news of our situation to spread. There's word that even the Beijing Ministry of Security has heard about this case and is insisting that the authorities make a point of not going easy on people of affluence." Just then, the policewoman came back in and said that Mr. Ching and Lin had to leave. On the way out of the police station, Mr. Ching and Lin noticed a group of people gathered on the steps. They were holding signs. Mr. Ching looked closer and saw they were protesters. The signs had pictures of a man named Lo that said, "Justice for Lo's murderer." Lin stopped at the bottom of the steps and said to Mr. Ching, "It doesn't look good. I'll make some more calls, and you should too, but it doesn't look good." Mrs. Ching spent the rest of the day sitting on the small bed in the room, lost in thought. At about noon, a new policewoman opened the door to her room and brought in Mrs. Ching's lunch on a tray. Mrs. Ching looked at the food, some fish and rice and a small bowl of soup. She tried the soup. It was cold. And the fish smelt bad. She wasn't hungry anyway. Mrs. Ching wondered if this was the quality of food she would be living on. She pushed the tray away and went to lie on the small bed. The next day, Mr. Ching and Lin went to the police station early. They were permitted to accompany Mrs. Ching to the hearing. They had to drive to a courthouse a few miles away. On the front steps of the courthouse, there were more protesters with signs. They hurried into the front door, but not before some of the protesters recognized Mrs. Ching and started shouting at her. Inside, they were ushered into a room to wait their turn. Lin turned to Mrs. Ching and said, "Last night I made some more calls. They were of no use. Public opinion is gathering steam. If there is a trial, it won't go well. There is too much evidence, and the judge and the prosecutor will not want the publicity and will go hard on you. Mrs. Ching, I recommend you plead guilty to the judge. If you give them this victory now, they might be lenient with you. It would allow them to put this incident behind them. The public outcry would calm down. I will plead guilty then. I will say I wanted to help the man, but my gas pedal got stuck, and when I hit him, I panicked and drove away because I thought nobody would believe me." Detective Ho came into the room with another man who they didn't know. "This is Mr. Chang, the prosecutor." Mr. Chang came over and said, "Mrs. Ching, have you considered your situation and the evidence against you? If you plead guilty, the judge will probably be lenient. I can put in a good word for you." Lin then spoke up and said, "Yes, we are ready to plead guilty." After some more discussion on what to say and when to say it, they all left the room. They waited on a bench outside the courtroom until another man came out and told them it was their turn. They walked into the courtroom, sat down in the front bench, and waited. Mr. Chang, the prosecutor, and Lin walked up and spoke in hushed tones to the judge. A few times the judge looked up at Mrs. Ching and then went back to talking to Chang and Lin. Finally, the judge asked Mrs. Ching to come forward and spoke. "Mrs. Li Ching, you have been accused of intentionally running down Mr. Wen Lo. How do you plead?" "I did hit him, yes, but it was not intentional. My gas pedal got stuck. I panicked and drove away. I was going to report it the next day. I didn't think he was hurt." "Mrs. Ching, have you thought carefully about your plea? Are you sure you want to plead guilty?" Mrs. Ching looked at Lin and then turned around and looked at her husband. Again, Mr. Ching was looking down at his feet. Mrs. Ching turned back towards the judge and said, "Yes, I am sure." The judge wrote something in a big book in front of him, looked up and said, "I have accepted your plea. I will consider this and pronounce sentencing tomorrow morning." Mr. Ching and Mrs. Ching and Ho and Lin left the courtroom and walked out to the lobby. Mr. Ching looked at his wife and said, "It is not over yet. Lin and I have made some more calls." At the jail, Mrs. Ching went to sleep and once again had a dream. She was again driving her BMW up a hill. She felt it hit something and the car stopped moving. She pushed the gas pedal, but the car wouldn't budge. She got out and looked down. Lo and his bicycle were jammed under the front tires, preventing them from turning. Lo looked up at her. His face was bruised and he had a stream of blood running out of the corner of his mouth. She turned to run, but her feet would not move. And then several police cars pulled up around her car. Lin and her husband got out of one of the cars. They didn't say anything but stood looking at her. Then she awoke. It was light in the room, and a policewoman was unlocking the door. She brought Mrs. Ching her breakfast of tea and a roll. This tea was hot, and the roll tasted good. Some time later, Mr. Ching and Lin arrived to accompany Mrs. Ching to the courtroom. Lin walked over to Mrs. Ching and whispered, "We might have made some progress. Last night, some of my intermediaries were able to talk to the judge and pay additional fines. He hasn't told us what he's planning on doing yet, but he might be lenient with you." At the courthouse, they entered through the back door to avoid the protesters. They had heard that there were hundreds of people on the front steps, and things had begun to get violent. They were called into the courtroom, and the same judge was there. They again sat in the front bench, and the judge called Mr. Chang, the prosecutor, up and talked to him in hushed tones for a few minutes. A few times, they turned around and looked at Mr. Ching and Lin, but not at Mrs. Ching. Finally, the judge said, "Mrs. Ching, I have reviewed your case. You have pleaded guilty, true, but your husband has paid the appropriate fines to the state and to the victim's family. You are free to go." Mrs. Ching could not believe her luck. She felt relieved and thankful that her husband and Lin were so resourceful. She really could never imagine living in jail. "My husband, I knew you would find a way to take care of this. I just want to go home." Mr. Ching shook Lin's hand and said goodbye. They walked to the rear door of the courthouse and stepped outside. It was a beautiful sunny day. They walked down the steps onto the sidewalk and started to cross the street to the parking garage. As they stepped onto the street, Mrs. Ching saw the car out of the corner of her eye. It was accelerating quickly toward her.